And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Welcome to the Politics, Prepping, and Paranormal Podcast.
Flibbity-jibbity nonsense.
I thought it was terrific.
Not just big, it's yeah.
Let's go.
Welcome, and thanks for listening to the Politics, Prepping, and Paranormal Podcast. My name is Jeff Morey, and I am your host. This week, I'm excited to welcome John Ege to my show. John is the State Director of MUFON in Texas. For those of you that don't know, MUFON is the Mutual UFO Network and is the largest UFO reporting and research organization in the world, and currently has over 4,000 members worldwide, with chapters and representatives in over 43 countries and all 50 states. If you've listened to my show long enough, you know I'm a believer in UFOs, or UAPs as they are now generally referred to, and in extraterrestrial life outside of our planet. I've long been fascinated with the phenomenon, and I continue to believe that our government and many world governments have long known of the existence of extraterrestrial life, or aliens if you'd rather me just call them that, and have been involved in what is probably the biggest, best kept secret in history. But hopefully, one day with the help of great people like John, we will finally discover the truth. We are not alone, and we have never been alone. So I'm definitely looking forward to speaking with John and discussing one of my absolute favorite subjects. But before I welcome John to the show, first let's discuss what's going on in the news this week. This was a big week in politics with 3 special elections taking place, a race to elect a new judge to the Wisconsin Supreme Court, and 2 special elections in Florida to replace the seats formerly held by President Trump's new National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz, and former GOP Representative Matt Gaetz. The GOP lost big in Wisconsin by a margin of 10 points, with liberal Justice Susan Crawford winning the seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court and securing a 10-year term, beating out Republican candidate Brad Schimmel, a former circuit court judge and attorney general. Elon Musk even got heavily involved in the race and reportedly spent millions of dollars campaigning and supporting Schimmel, and Democrats devoted most of their resources toward attacking Elon and claiming he tried to buy Schimmel in the election. The news is better in Florida, though, as former Florida Chief Financial Officer Jimmy Patronis defeated Democrat Gabe Valamont, a former activist with Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, and Randy Fine won the 6th district race, beating out Democrat Josh Wheel. The wins in Florida will give the GOP some breathing room in the Republican-controlled House, and will now have a 220 to 213 majority, with 2 Democratic vacancies. This means that the GOP could afford to lose 3 Republican seats and still pass legislation along party lines, assuming, of course, every sitting member votes. In a feat that I will say is impressive, New Jersey Democratic Senator Cory Booker delivered a 25-hour and 5-minute speech on Monday night, setting a new record for the longest speech on the Senate floor. He started his speech at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Monday night and pledged to use this time to, quote, disrupt the normal business of the United States Senate for as long as I am physically able. In the speech, Booker spent most of his time criticizing President Trump's policies on the economy, immigration, and education. A White House spokesperson issued a statement saying, Cory Booker is looking for another I am Spartacus moment, but that didn't work for his failed presidential campaign, and it didn't work to block President Trump's Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. When will he realize he's not Spartacus? He's a spoof. I will say, though, I have to give credit where credit's due. That was an impressive feat physically, and he's brought some much-needed excitement to the Democratic Party when they need it most. More drama about the ongoing trade and tariffs wars this week as President Trump imposed new tariffs on imports from China by as much as 79%. In response, China announced early Friday that it was imposing reciprocal tariffs on goods brought in from the U.S. of 34%. The stock market again reacted, with the S&P 500 falling more than 3%, NASDAQ fell about 3.6%, and the Dow Jones Industrial fell about 3%. Trump is standing by his tariffs and economic policies, posting again on Friday morning on social media, quote, "My policies will never change." Hopefully he'll stand by that this time. He has wavered the last month or two and flip-flopped on some of his tariff policies. I've said before that I agree with him on making other countries pay if they impose tariffs on us, but stand firm and don't back down. Flip-flopping like that shows weakness and other countries will take advantage. Buckle up, because I'm afraid we're in for a rough few months until the tariff war's in and we start getting things sorted out again. Just my 2 cents. Many parts of the country faced even more severe weather this week, and at least 8 people have lost their lives due to severe storm systems in the South and Midwest. Poor Kentucky. Man, Kentucky always seems to get the blunt of many of the recent severe storms. And it was reported a child was swept away by floodwaters and died while walking to his school bus. The boy has been identified as 9-year-old Gabriel Andrews of Frankfort, Kentucky. As a parent, I cannot even begin to imagine. I don't think there's ever a single bigger fear than that of losing a child. Please be sure to pray for Gabriel's family. If I can find any information on how to donate to help Gabriel's family, I'll try to post it to my social media accounts. Former actor and comedian turned social media star and podcast host, Russell Brand, has been accused this week of multiple charges of rape and sexual assault. The charges were announced a year and a half after Brand was accused of sexual misconduct by 4 women in 2023. Brand has always defied the accusations, saying that he has always been sexually promiscuous, but that all of the interactions were always consensual. He is set to appear at a Westminster Magistrates Court on May 2nd. I haven't listened to his show myself, but I know people that do, and Russell is a born-again Christian that over the last couple of years has been exposing some of the nefarious actions by some of the world's elite and world governments. And I'm pretty sure he has said himself that he thought he might become a target. While I'm neither supporting or condemning Brand for the accusations facing him, I do believe that they are very much politically motivated and not what they seem at the surface. Okie dokie. I think that just about covers all the interesting and relevant news this week. At this time, I would like to welcome John Ege to the show. Welcome, John, and thanks for coming on and talking with me this week.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. First, could you tell the audience and those who might not know a little bit more about MUFON and what they do?
Certainly. So in 1969, MUFON came on the radar, and they're called the Mutual UFO Network. Their mission statement is the study of UFOs for the betterment of humanity. I don't know anything better than mission statements than that, other than Star Trek. To go where no one has gone before.
Right. I'm a Star Trek nerd myself. A lot of people don't know that. I'm a sci-fi nerd in general. So, um, would you tell us a little bit more about your role with MUFON?
So certainly. So I guess everyone knows the history. 2017, the Nimitz carrier group and the Tic Tac UFO caught my attention. And while I've been an experiencer all my life, but and I thought the Phoenix Lights was going to be the disclosure moment, but the Nimitz sealed the deal, and I came out of the closet in a big way. And then in 2021, I became a field investigator for MUFON, and just knocking out cases here and there, trying to figure out what we're seeing. And in 24 July, they bumped me up to the state director of MUFON.
Nice.
Yeah, and so I'm very fortunate to meet some wonderful people, and my life is just blessed. This is the icing on the cake for me.
Yeah, we say UAPs these days, right? We don't.
Yeah.
We're away from the UFO thing at this point. It's unidentified aerial phenomenon. Isn't that right? Isn't that the correct
That is the
terminology
correct,
now?
that is the correct term, yes, sir. And for good reasons. Um, it's a phenomenon, and you can't eliminate this wide spectrum of stuff that comes with it. So Jack Valet created the close encounter scales, but he also had an anomalous rating scale, which includes everything from poltergeist to near-death experiences and all kinds of crazy stuff. I think I should add too that I was looking for a way to serve this community, not just because I'm an experiencer and because I felt strongly about helping humanity shift into this new paradigm where everyone knows we're not alone. I'm a counselor and I've been an active LPC since 2012, and I think I bring some skills that would help folks.
Absolutely. You said about. I was going to ask you how long you've been with MUFON. What first made you interested in? How far back can you go and talk about when you first became interested in UAPs and extraterrestrials, and what age and what made you get into this field?
Well, Star Trek is my number one primary philosophy, and I was watching the reruns and syndication growing up, and I don't know, Ultraman and everything sci-fi related. My family thought I was an alien. Um, they wanted none of that. My dad's was Navy and football. Um, we really didn't discuss this topic. In fact, they squashed this topic. We didn't talk about UFOs, my dreams, ghosts. Um, my grandfather would acknowledge the ghost walking up the stairs to the room over the garage, but they just mostly giggled at me. And so I learned really quick. We moved a lot. You just don't talk about this. And I kept it secret until 1997, when the Phoenix Lights. So what interests me the most about that, and I was working in American Airlines at the time, is in June there was a front page USA Today with the Phoenix Lights, and I went nuts. I collected every damn paper I could collect. Oh, sorry. I do.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Hard to cuss watching Smokey and the Bandit.
Yeah, yeah, no, you're good. As long as we don't drop any F bombs or anything like that, we're all good. I try to keep it clean, but no, there's nothing wrong with that. You're fine.
So I collected like 40 of them in the break room, and they all started like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "Disclosure's happening." And they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Look, front page. This is big stuff." And they're like, "No, it's not." I'm like, "No, look, this happened in March. The story didn't come out to June. Why? Because you can't keep 20,000 people silent." I get really excited.
Oh, that's okay. I love talking about this subject too. I'm going to be doing a lot more shows about this. I've only done. I haven't even published 25 episodes yet, but I've only done one UAP show, UFO phenomenon show, and I really want to get into the subject a lot more because with everything with the paranormal, it's the one thing that fascinates me the most. I've had ghost experiences myself, and I'm going to talk a little bit more. I kind of walk the line a little bit because I am a Christian, so I take the philosophy of I'm fascinated by it. I want to talk about it. I think it's a thing. I think people need to know about it, especially UAPs and extraterrestrials and life outside this planet. But I just kind of take the philosophy of, you know, watch and learn and study and you're not going to catch me out, ghost hunting, a haunted house or something like that. But that doesn't mean I don't absolutely love talking about it.
Fair enough.
That's kind of my philosophy with any of it. But it's always fascinated me since I was a kid. Like you, I'm a Star Trek, Star Wars. Man, I even watched Babylon 5 and some of the other ones. A lot of people don't know that about me, but I've always loved sci-fi. I remember as a kid, I used to sit, my parents always watched The Next Generation when it came out. And I would sit in the living room with them when I was a kid, and I used to call them nerds for watching it. And, I said that, but I would sit there and be enthralled in it and just fascinated with it. And I'd start asking them questions about it. And then I turn around and make fun of them. Cause as a kid, at that day and age, it wasn't a cool thing, but who cares? I got a cousin, her and her husband, they go to conventions and all that stuff. I think it's great. So I've
Yeah.
always been fascinated by the subject also. Um, could you talk about some of the cases you've investigated And what's the most interesting or fascinating case that you have ever investigated in your time with MUFON?
Yeah, I've seen so many things. One of the, I think, guess the most interesting one I explained away was a mass sighting of Starlink, which the news got wrong. And so they were saying that we saw the Falcon 9 shoot up, and I'm like, well, that can't be right because we're 600 nautical miles away from Florida, and so the curvature of the Earth should block that. Not to mention the fact this happened an hour after the launch, and the Falcon 9, if you don't know this, from launch to jettison of the second stage and back is like 8 minutes. It's
The Falcon 9, isn't that the one that crashed or that had the mishap? That did it make it in out of the atmosphere? Wasn't that the first one that I can't remember. I've
I don't
actually talked
remember.
about that briefly. I can't remember what all of Elon's rocket names anymore, but
Well, so what happened on this particular night, and sorry I can't give you the date, but anytime you see, so the Falcon 9 takes the second stage up and it jettisons it, and that comes back. And then this about an hour later, if it goes in the southeast direction, it comes over the North Pole and over Texas is when it separates from the second stage, and the Starlink package goes their separate ways, and it makes this really nice smoke ring. And we had several and people recorded this, logging it in, and we were able to classify it pretty quick. I suppose one of the funniest ones I saw, and I don't remember this one YouTube channel, WB333, I think is the name. So I had a case where this folks sent in a video of what looked like a large object, but you couldn't tell precisely what it was because it's just five lights, but they're all moving so uniformly that you're pretty confident by your eye that it's one object. Um, he was recording it. His sister was in the shop trying to find it on flight radar, and she's like, "There's nothing in the sky. What? Well, I don't understand this."
wasn't transponding.
Yeah, so they knew enough to like look for stuff, which like give them credit. And then the wife was behind the sister and her husband, filming both of them catching it too. Um, and they sent this in to me, and I'm just one of those guys that just keeps looking at UFO videos, and I found one that looked exactly like it, only it was in San Antonio, 45 minutes away from this, and 45 minutes later.
Hmm.
So I said, "This is the same thing." And so I contacted my guy and said, "Look at this video over here." He says, "That's exactly mine." And then he sent his video to WB333, and he put them both together in another video. And
You know, I think I've heard this story. Actually, I think I was watching some UFO documentary or something. I've watched so many of them, I can't keep up with it at this point. But
yeah,
I believe I've actually heard this story that the one you're referring to. I know there was a lot of them that talked about him, like basically making a centrical path along, a certain area that, there was one I remember hearing about that went over a bunch of military bases and it just kind of followed a direction over the Midwest.
yeah.
But I think I know the case you're referring to. I remember hearing about it.
And
Um,
and I like those things, and I like just being smart and clever and finding something and saying, "This looks exactly the same."
right. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. That's your job as an investigator, right?
Pretty
Trying to
much.
put the pieces together.
It's all pattern recognition, and so you train yourself to look for patterns so that you can eliminate stuff pretty quick. And so I've become an expert in light flares. I know how to tell people to go out and create them, and they go out and, "Oh, I guess you're right," or,
Right.
yeah, and so it's really fun. Lately, I suppose the most interesting thing that I've been involved with, the jellyfish UFO. I had one in July of last year, and it was my first jellyfish UFO person who came in contact with something like that. And had I not seen Bob Spearing talk about the history of jellyfish UFOs, which you can find Christina Gomez speaking about it in one of her episodes. I forget the name of it, but she invites him and they have a nice little talk. Had I not seen Bob Spearing's thing at the symposium, the MUFON symposium, I would have thought she was nuts and just, well, I'm not sure what this is, and went on. But I couldn't put it down, and that was really interesting. And since then, I've I recently got another one that looks like it may be a jellyfish UFO, but he hasn't reported to MUFON. He's talking to me sideways. But now I'm also working for the experiencer resource team. And so I'm starting to talk to people who have had or who are reporting to have had first contact with aliens or abduction cases. And
Oh, okay. Wow.
yeah, and so it's my LPC, my license to counsel, really pays off in this instance because most of these people are feeling
They probably don't know what they're feeling,
yeah,
honestly.
shock. They're having all kinds of ontological kind of things and isolation because they don't feel like they can talk about it with anyone. And that's the biggest thing for most of them. They just want to talk.
I think we've reached the point in society and now where it's a thing. I think people are having a hard time denying it at this point, and you know, there's going to be disclosure eventually. I feel like I don't know, but
Uh,
it's a thing, and I don't think anybody can deny that it's not a thing anymore.
Disclosure is coming. That I think it's happened. But you would be surprised how many people don't know the subject.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back. It's such a big case, like the Battle of Los Angeles.
Mhm.
I mean, it goes back. I mean, that could have. We all thought that might have been a disclosure case, but like you said, the Phoenix Lights. I mean, the Tic Tac UFO. I mean, I don't
Well,
know.
Stephenville, 2008, that was pretty huge too.
Yeah,
And the drone thing, I think the drone thing is still happening as from what I gather, but you're not hearing it on the media anymore. This is funny. So I gave a speech or a UFO PowerPoint in Edinburgh, Texas in January. And on the way back, you have to, that far south, when you come up towards the heart, you have to pass through border checkpoints. All right. And so I pulled in and I've got my F-150. I got a friend with me and I have a topper on the back. It's the Moonlander topper. It's pretty cool. You should look it up.
I have to check it out.
And he says, "Well, what's that about?" I'm like, "Well, my dream is to get out in the field and camp and watch for UFOs." And he stops. He says, "What do you know about UFOs?" And I said, "Well, I just gave a speech in Edinburgh, and I am director MUFON in Texas." And he says, "What do you know about the drones?" He got real serious, real fast, and I'm like, "The ones in New Jersey?" He says, "No, the ones down here. I'm out in the field with my goggles, and these things are bigger than our drones, and we use drones to try to see who's sneaking across the border and catch them. These things are huge."
Well, they've been all over. A lot of people don't know that. I actually talked about that. I think briefly a few weeks. It's been a little bit, but there's a lot more drone cases that people that have not been reported that people don't know about. This was going on all over the country.
Yeah.
I mean, the New Jersey one, there was one. I'm from Northeast North Carolina, which is just south of Norfolk Naval Base, and so many of the big Little Creek Amphibious Base,
Mhm.
Northwest Naval Base. There's so many bases, and Virginia's the biggest military base state. There was a instance of them in Virginia Beach,
Yeah.
and I think it was Hampton where there was drones that were buzzing the military bases. A lot of people
Yeah.
didn't know about it. There was one in Florida in Key West that a lot of people didn't know about. There were some sightings down there. A lot of the people don't know about some of these. I mean, this has been going on all over the country,
Yeah.
and people don't know about it. All they heard was about, like you said, the New Jersey case, and a
Yeah.
few of them. I mean, they're all over the place, and people just don't know.
But
So,
get this. This is the next part of the story. 15 minutes out of that border checkpoint, I got pulled over for speeding by a Texas state trooper. He comes up on my right side. I roll down the passenger window, and he's like, you're going 75 in a work zone." I'm like, "Oh no, sir,
ooh,
that can't be," because I slowed down, and then when the speedometer kicked back up, I showed him it's one of those automated ones. I figured it was good to go. And he says, "Well, no, not quite." And he says, "Where are you from?" I said, "Irving." And he says, "What are you doing down here?" And I'm like, "Well, I gave a UFO speech in Edinburgh." And he says, "What do you know about the drones?" We sat and talked on the side of the road for like
I bet
20.
you got out of that ticket too, didn't you?
I did, I got a warrant.
Nice. Hey, had a likewise mind there. That's good. I love it. I love hearing stories like that.
Yeah, so the rest of my life, I'm gonna be telling everyone, "What do you know about UFOs?" And we'll have a conversation on the road.
There you go. Um, it's a strict civilian, strictly volunteer organization. in your time, and I guess we kind of led up to this a little bit, in your time in investigations, have you ever gotten resistance from the federal government? And have they ever impeded or tried to shut down any of your investigations?
Well, heck, you want to put me on the spot?
You don't have to answer that if you don't want to.
Well, let's
And you
just
don't have to give names or details, but this is something that,
give any names or details. Don't worry about that. But
yeah,
let's just say back in 23, we had a string of cattle mutilations going all the way from Edinburgh all the way up past Oklahoma. Uh, so there were a lot. And we were asked to step down.
Hmm.
There was a 3-letter agency that was like, and I had several communities that had gathered up together because these ranchers don't like losing cattle. And so they were trying to figure out what was going on, and they're having community talks, and some of my field investigators were involved in those.
interesting.
Yeah, they
I
just
knew the answer would be yes. I didn't know how much you'd be willing to talk about it, but I knew the answer would be yes.
yeah.
So,
But
all right.
that's the biggest one that's happened since I've been with MUFON. Um, Ken Cherry will tell you. Ken Cherry was the state director who investigated the Stephenville flap. He will tell you that he personally got threatened.
Hmm.
I'm hoping we're beyond the threat stage of this thing. As you know, for example, and I get really irritable about this particular thing. Oumuamua was said to be alien tech by the head of physics of Harvard, A.V. Loeb, Dr. Loeb, which I'm okay with. Yay him. But I have not heard him come out and advocate for John E. Mack, who was the Harvard chair of psychiatrics, who said UFOs were real and aliens are real, and he nearly got tarred and feathered. And so I'd like to see a lot more fairness in that thing. So if he's going to get credit, let's give John E. Mack some credit.
Right. Well, let's go back, I guess, I mean, this isn't the beginning, but this is what everybody knows the beginning. I'm just going to ask you the question.
Okay.
1947, Roswell, New Mexico. Did the U.S. government recover an alien spacecraft? And even more importantly, did they recover EBEs? What's your opinion? EBE, for those that don't know, I mean, me and you know this, the terminology, this extraterrestrial biological entity,
So
aliens, basically.
absolutely it happened. You ain't going to shake me of that. There's no way the top military guy that helped deploy nuclear weapons could mistake a mylar
you.
balloon for the you just can't do it. And why would you need an 18-wheeler which left tracks to bring a balloon back? I used to crew for a hot air balloon. That ain't going. Funny, ironic, this is a sidestep kind of correlation. You don't have to accept the correlation. There's a book about that where the interview with an alien where the nurse supposedly was involved with the Roswell alien and she had a telepathic link. You hear that story a lot. There's someone had a telepathic link.
You hear that a lot in general when it comes to EBEs, that they're all telepathic. You never know what's true and what's not. But
Well, the telepathy is a real thing. What's interesting to me about that book is she calls her group of people the domain. And they had this little symbol that looks like the Star Trek symbol. Makes me wonder if it ain't all soft disclosure.
everything, symbology, I mean, symbols and symbolism, everything is with that anyway. I mean, it's
Well,
just rooted. So, but Washington D.C. is nothing. The entire city is nothing but symbolism.
so you
I
want
mean,
you want a fun rabbit to chase?
sure,
All
hit
right.
me.
So whether you buy it or not, recently there were some structures found under the pyramid.
Great pyramids. I know we were going with that.
So so you can find a dozen people that are kind of psychics that said, like Edgar Casey said there's structures under there. John McMonagle said there's structures under there, and drew it to scale. All right. Recently, the CIA released they found the Ark of the Covenant. All right, and so
I saw that too.
yep, the Ark of the Covenant goes into that. Right now, what you don't know is this, or you may know, the space agency that mapped that structure out is called Capella.
I
Now,
did not know that.
I happen to be a spiritist. The spiritist started by Allan Kardec, back in the 1800s, and he coined the term mediumship or mediums. And in success to him, Chico Xavier, who was the greatest Brazilian psychic, he's the Brazilian Edgar Casey of the time, having channeled aliens, not only said that there were structures under there, but people incarnated from a star called Capella to Egypt to help advance the human race.
I've heard that theory a lot.
So what are the odds that the Capella Space Satellite Agency mapped it, but it's also connected back in the 1900s, early 1900s with Capella? And Edgar Casey's also one that said that we've incarnated on other planets. This guy named Bruno, who was a Catholic monk, said that there are people on other planets. They burned him at the stake, where his peer Galileo got house arrest. And then you have Dolores Cannon and Michael Newton's, both of their books, Journey of Souls and Life Between Lives or Life After Life, shows that we've incarnated from other planets onto here. So we have all of this divergent stuff that's converging all at once. And here's more to the rabbit hole. Spielberg and Lucas are in on this, or they're part of the soft disclosure, or they have some kind of accidental remote viewing. So you got Close Encounters, right? And so there's a connection. You have the Ark of the Covenant. Well, there's Lucas's Raiders of the Lost Ark. Poltergeist, that's on there. You need to check out Explorers. If you haven't seen Explorers, kids download, get a diagram on how to make a circuit board that makes a force field so the aliens can pull them up to their ship and they have an alien encounter. And Robert Palmer, who does the song in that, it's called All Around the World. He woke up from a dream, sang it into a recorder, hung up, and went back to sleep. And he says that's the only song that he's ever pulled out of a dream. And
Interesting.
Yeah, and so when you take Garen Nolan's talk about downloads, and this is all connected somehow.
Absolutely. Going along with the Roswell question.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. No, this is fascinating stuff, man, because you know a lot more about all this than I do. I'm learning here. So do you think that other world governments have recovered alien craft or beings?
Absolutely. And in fact, there's a I forget the name of the documentary. It's almost like a book that the French government released that probably made a whole lot of people mad. Forget the name of it, but they're talking about UFOs and such. And there's overwhelming evidence that we've had this stuff around us for a long time.
Absolutely. Watching all the, I'm a big, I call myself, people call me a conspiracy theorist. I call myself a conspiracy realist because, half the stuff has happened or is happening that, they've all said it was conspiracy theories, but this is one I wanted to get your opinion on because I'd be curious to see I've long heard reports of a joint alien human base somewhere deep in Dulce, New Mexico. Like 15 stories or something like that. Do you think there's any truth to any of these rumors, or are there any other similar bases around the world?
There are absolutely alien bases on this planet.
Catalina Island, where the UAP Tic Tac was. I mean, that's a rumored underwater base.
So I'm just speculating here. I'm not telling anyone to go to Waxahachie and investigate that super collider we were supposed to build. But 10 years into the project, our government pulls the funding for it and says we don't need a super collider. And then they give the next year the same amount that would have taken to finish it to the European super collider, which was completed 10 years later. You can't tell me there's nothing there. And maybe it's aliens, maybe it's not. But then in 2018, we have the Israeli Space Defense Minister. What was that fellow's name? I forget his name, but you can look him up. He said that not only are aliens here, and they think we're immature and they want us to grow up, but the US government is in cahoots with them. And there's a galactic federation.
Well, I mean, which president was it that they said they thought, was it Roosevelt that they said they thought signed a treaty
Yes.
with them? Because, there was that big thing in DC.
Eisenhower.
Was it Franklin D. Roosevelt? I want to say it was.
It was Eisenhower.
Oh, Eisenhower. Okay. I was thinking it was Roosevelt for some reason. I knew there was one that they thought that actually met with them and signed some kind of treaty with them. So
And he had some missing time there that was really interesting, and, when he got back, he said, "Oh, I just had a dentist appointment." Yeah, okay,
Well, he's not the only one. There's a lot of other ones that have been connected with him too. So,
yeah,
and they say every U.S. president that's ever taken office, that's the first question they ask is
yeah,
Area 51 real, or are we alone? And apparently, this thing's so big that they don't even tell the president of the most powerful country in the world, from what we're
and
hearing. So,
and fair enough, maybe hypothetically, let's say some of this technology is actually easier to create and come up with than you think. You don't necessarily want your enemy to have it. And you wouldn't want some crazy guy in his garage building an antimatter ship because you just slammed something into the earth the right way and you got something with more kinetic energy, even for a small amount of mass, than and you really want people to play. Um, and if psychics are involved and you could create a device that could literally let you kind of hijack someone's subconscious, you don't want them having that either. And so there's good reason to keep some of this stuff secret. Um, so Reagan, created the Star Wars program, and there's that one STS mission where you see a laser shoot out and some debris change course and go back the way it came. And so, what if some of these UFOs that supposedly uh, all these crashes that we have the recovery team for, maybe those are just things we've shot down because they're the enemy.
hmm, interesting theory.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we really don't know how advanced our technology. They say experts say that military technology is between 30 and 40 years
Yeah.
ahead of most civilian technology. But
Thank you
you
for
know,
saying. Now
if
watch.
they were to get a extraterrestrial craft, I mean, how many thousands of years ahead
So
would that put us?
let me answer that. That's great. I'm glad you brought that up. So, per academia, within the next 5 years, AI will be sentient. All right.
Yep,
Anyone who has a sentient AI will be 10,000 years computationally compared to
behind.
someone who doesn't have it.
Yep.
The military is 30 to 50 years ahead of civilian tech. They have advanced AI sentient and they are well beyond anything. They're beyond Star Trek.
AI scares me to death. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's funny we're having this conversation because that is actually an upcoming show topic
Mhm.
that I've been researching a little bit and that I'm going to be doing soon. That is AI, and there's going to be just going to be called the rise of AI. It scares me to death. It does. I mean, it's people do not understand how far they don't see it so much in their daily lives, other than Grok on X or something like that.
Yeah,
They don't get how far the things that this can do, and the Terminator stuff. And this could be real life.
it
People
could.
don't get it. I mean,
And fair enough. Why would you name Skynet after watching that
thank
Terminator
you.
movie?
I know. That's so much symbolism in everything. I swear there is. Um, and I know this is a question none of us can really ask. I just want to get your opinion on it. But if there are extraterrestrials out there, how many different species and how many different planets are we talking about here? Is it
Well,
just infinite or
well, hypothetically speaking, if the universe is actually finite and then there's a finite number of planets, but there are so many, you might as well say it's infinite because every planet will have its own change in biology. So, for example, let's say just for fun that humans move to Mars. Within 1 year, you're not coming back to Earth because you've been in a lower gravity, and everyone born on Mars will be taller than a human. Now, Joe McMonagle says that there were civilians or there was a race on Mars, and they were much taller, and they had something happen, and then some of them went out, and we're speculating that some of them came to Earth, and they didn't go back to get them, and we may be the Martians.
I've heard that a bunch of times. I mean, you always hear about them finding giant bones and stuff like that too, and
Yeah,
associating that with, man, it just blows your mind just to think about some of this stuff. Like I said, I am a Christian, so I kind of back off and, but that, man, just the possibilities are just ridiculous of
yeah.
everything. And I try to have an open mind with everything. So, anyway, we talked briefly about disclosure. Um, what do you think? Do you think there's ever going to be disclosure? And you said you did, or are they just going to keep stringing us along with this forever?
I would like to think that our government is the good guys and they're not going to conceal things forever. I really do hope that. I get a lot of folks telling me our government's never going to release, and there's some pressure from the aliens for them to disclose. And so the trick here is, will our government do it before there's a big event and there's just no denying it? I don't know. I'm still in a holding pattern on that, and I just know it's going to happen. I don't know how.
Right. Um, what what does the future hold for MUFON? What do you see its contributions being to the UAP phenomenon now and in the future?
Well, that's a great question too, and ideally, if we're going to slow roll disclosure, MUFON could have a reasonable position as the civilian arm of ARROW. I really think that's a great way to play it out, because not only then do you have civilian volunteers who could help humanity adjust, but we could grow the organization in that sense. And it would be nice to not have another 100 versions of MUFON-like entities. New Fork is probably our best competitor, and they're really pretty solid. They may not have as much statistics as our CMS program does, and fair enough, we probably need to update that program to some degree. But there's a military branch, I forget their name, they were soliciting information on an app. They've hooked up with Newport, and I really think we all need to be on the same game.
Agreed. So as I stated before, MUFON is 100% volunteer organization, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that means all of you are either still working separate jobs or retired, and you do your research and investigation in your spare time pretty much, right?
Affirmative.
Uh, just a little personal question here, just so the listeners can get to know you. Could you tell us about what is your regular 9 to 5? I know you touched on it briefly, day job, and tell us a little bit more about your life outside of MUFON.
Okay. So, since 2016, I've had a habit of getting up and writing every day. Some of that is fan fiction, fluff, and all kinds of stuff, but mostly it's narrative therapy. I use it for my own self progression. I write regularly on Medium. You can find some of my work there. Make fun of it because I'm grammatically challenged. I have a son who is about to turn 11. He is the pride and joy of my life. He lives in San Jose with his mother, and he has more airtime flying than I do, and I worked for the airlines for 24 years, but thanks to that, I can go and get him and bring him back pretty easy. And um, his first trip was to Spain. I've traveled all over the world. Yeah, he was 6 months old and on a plane to Spain, and
Wow.
I went with him.
I
And
don't know if I want to get in a plane these days. To be
uh,
honest with you, I'm a little nervous about this mess going on. You heard there was just the other night there was a close call in DC again,
yeah,
with the Air Force. Man, I don't know. I'm
I had no
well,
problems flying until 9/11 happened,
yeah,
and that now I can't get on without anxiety. And I had to go get my son. My son had just started flying on his own, which makes it easier for me to have him more often. And he said, "Well, what if a helicopter flies into the plane because of the DC thing?" And I'm like, first, I'm mad. Why are you watching the news again?
right.
Would you like me to come and get you? And he said, "Yeah, so I'll be there." And so I got
Awesome.
and went. And so between writing and I counsel, I was working 4 days a week. Now I'm back to 5 days a week, and my days off are generally investigating UFOs, going to my friend's house and barbecuing, and so I do try to relax a little.
Nice. Awesome. John, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. This has been a great conversation.
Thank you so much.
It's nice to talk to somebody that doesn't think I'm crazy sometimes. So,
You're not crazy for believing in aliens. That's for sure. And if you want, I have a YouTube video that says as much.
awesome. Yeah, you have to send it to me.
Okay.
Thanks for coming on, man. Hope you have a great rest of your week. We'll talk to
Bye-bye.
you soon.
Bye.
All right, that's my show for this week. I hope you all enjoyed my interview with John as much as I enjoyed talking with him. I will be covering a lot more topics and doing a lot more interviews on UAPs and government disclosure in the future. If you have any interesting stories of your own you would like to share, please feel free to post to any of my social media accounts or email me at thepppodcast@yahoo.com, and I'll make sure to share them and may even talk about them on the show. As always, you can find me on X and Facebook, and now you can also find me on YouTube, Instagram. Big thanks to my wonderful wife for setting that one up for me. And even Blue Sky as well. You'd actually be surprised how many conservatives are on Blue Sky these days, believe it or not. I have another awesome interview show lined up for next week that you won't want to miss with a 33-year FBI veteran and author, and I'm sure he will have some very interesting stories and things to talk about. Thank you, as always, for listening. I will see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Politics, Prepping, and Paranormal Podcast. Your source for real news and analysis on politics, prepping, paranormal, conspiracy theories, and the volatile state of the world we live in. Tune in next week and every week for a new episode. And stay safe, stay healthy, and stay vigilant.